The shot rang out across the dusty plain as Isaac Vaughn tracked a wounded coyote through the pale light of dawn, his breath forming small clouds in the crisp October air of 1874. He hadn't wanted to shoot the beast, but it had been attacking his chickens for weeks, and a rancher had to protect what was his. Colorado territory was unforgiving that way. You either defended what belonged to you or watched it disappear. As Isaac followed the blood trail back toward his property, he never imagined that the real challenge to his solitary existence was waiting in the shadows of his barn, about to change everything he thought he knew about himself. The sun was just beginning to cast long shadows across the rolling grassland surrounding Isaac's modest ranch 10 miles outside of Silver Creek. At 32, he had carved out a life for himself here, not an easy one, but one he could be proud of. 5 years of backbreaking work had transformed a run-down homestead into a functioning cattle operation with 30 head, 2 horses, a small vegetable garden, and enough chicken eggs to trade in town once a week. Isaac pushed his hat back and wiped sweat from his brow as he approached the barn. The coyote trail had gone cold, and he figured the animal had managed to slink away to lick its wounds. He'd have to be more vigilant in the coming days. Hanging his rifle on the pegs by the barn door, he pulled the heavy wooden door open, preparing for his morning chores. A small, strange sound stopped him in his tracks. It wasn't the familiar noise of his animals. It was something else, something that didn't belong. Isaac paused, listening more intently. There it was again, a soft whimpering, almost like a kitten, but not quite. He moved cautiously between the horse stalls, following the sound to the back corner of the barn where he kept extra hay stored. "Who's there?" he called out, his hand instinctively moving to the knife at his belt. The whimpering stopped abruptly, replaced by a tense silence. Isaac moved closer to the haystack, noticing now that some bales had been rearranged to form a small shelter. When he peered around the makeshift wall, what he saw made him step back in surprise. Huddled in the corner, clutching a tiny bundle to her chest, was a young woman. Her dark hair hung in tangles around her face, and her dress, once fine from the looks of it, was torn and dirty. Her eyes, wide with fear, met his, and in them, Isaac saw a desperate plea. "Please," she whispered, her voice hoarse. "Please don't make us leave." The bundle in her arms squirmed, and a tiny fist emerged from the blanket. It was then that Isaac realized she was holding an infant, no more than a few months old. "Madam," Isaac said, softening his tone as he lowered his hand from his knife. "I'm not going to hurt you. How did you get in here?" She swallowed hard, pulling the baby closer. "The door was unlatched yesterday afternoon. I was desperate for shelter." Her eyes darted to the barn entrance. "We've been traveling for days. I had nowhere else to go." Isaac knelt down to appear less threatening, keeping a respectful distance. "What's your name?" She hesitated, clearly weighing whether to trust him. "Beatrice," she finally said. "Beatrice Russell, and this is Emma." The baby made another small sound, and Beatrice gently rocked her, whispering soft words of comfort. Isaac noticed the woman's hands were raw and blistered, her fingernails caked with dirt. Whatever journey had brought her to his barn had not been an easy one. "I'm Isaac Vaughn. This is my ranch." He glanced around the barn, then back at her. "Are you hungry? I was about to make breakfast." Relief flooded Beatrice's face, though caution remained in her eyes. "Yes, thank you. Can you walk? The house isn't far." She nodded, struggling to her feet while keeping the baby secure in her arms. Isaac noticed she winced as she put weight on her right foot. "You're hurt," he observed. "It's nothing, just a blister." But as she took a step forward, she stumbled slightly. Without thinking, Isaac moved to steady her, his hand catching her elbow. She flinched at his touch but didn't pull away. "Sorry," he said, immediately releasing her. "Let me help you to the house, and then I'll come back for your things." He nodded toward a small bundle beside the hay. "That's all I have," she said softly, and something in her tone made Isaac's chest tighten. The walk to the house was slow, with Beatrice limping alongside Isaac, who kept a watchful eye on her without hovering too close. The baby, Emma, had quieted, apparently soothed by the gentle motion of her mother's walk. Isaac's home was a simple one-story structure built of logs and stone, with a small front porch and 2 windows facing east toward the rising sun. Inside, it was sparsely furnished but clean, with a main room that served as both kitchen and living area, and 2 small bedrooms off to the side. A stone fireplace dominated one wall, currently cold with the morning still new. "Sit there," Isaac said, gesturing to a wooden chair at the table. "I'll get the fire going." As he busied himself with kindling and logs, he watched Beatrice from the corner of his eye. She sat stiffly, her gaze constantly moving around the room, assessing, perhaps planning escape routes. The baby began to fuss again, and Beatrice unbuttoned the top of her dress to feed her, turning slightly away from Isaac for privacy. Isaac quickly averted his eyes, focusing on getting breakfast together. He had some bacon, eggs from his chickens, and bread he'd baked 2 days prior. It wasn't fancy, but it would be filling. "Where have you come from?" he asked, keeping his tone conversational as he sliced the bread. There was a long pause before Beatrice answered. "Denver, most recently." "That's more than 80 miles. You walked?" "Some walking, some riding when I could get it." She adjusted the baby at her breast. "I had to leave in a hurry," Isaac nodded, not pressing further. He'd seen enough of life to know when someone was running from something or someone. "Well, you're welcome to rest here a spell. Get your feet back under you." "Why would you help us?" Her question held a bitter edge, the wariness of someone who had learned not to trust kindness. Isaac placed a plate of food in front of her. "Because it's the right thing to do." He poured a cup of coffee and set it beside the plate. "And because I know what it's like to have nowhere to go." Beatrice studied him for a moment, then shifted Emma to her shoulder to pat the baby's back. A tiny burp emerged, making Isaac smile despite himself. "She's got a healthy appetite," he commented. "She's a good baby," Beatrice said, her voice softening when she spoke of her daughter. "Hardly ever cries unless she's hungry or needs changing." She looked down at the plate of food, then back at Isaac. "Thank you for this." "Eat while it's hot," he encouraged, taking a seat across from her with his own plate. They ate in silence for a while, Beatrice balancing the baby in one arm while she ate with the other hand. Isaac noticed she consumed the food with controlled desperation, someone who was desperately hungry, but trying not to appear so. "There's more if you want it," he said, pushing the remaining bacon toward her. Beatrice hesitated only briefly before taking another slice. "I can work," she said suddenly. "To pay for our keep, I can cook, clean, mend clothes. I'm stronger than I look." Isaac considered her offer. He could use the help, certainly. The ranch kept him busy from dawn till dusk, and many tasks went undone simply because he couldn't get to them all. "We can discuss that after you've rested," he said. "There's a spare bedroom you can use. It's small, but it's private." Relief washed over Beatrice's face. "Thank you, Mr. Vaughn." "Isaac," he corrected. "No need for formality out here." After breakfast, Isaac showed Beatrice to the second bedroom. It was indeed small, furnished only with a narrow bed, a small chest of drawers, and a hook on the wall for clothes. A window looked out over the eastern fields. "It's not much," he apologized. "It's perfect," Beatrice said, and Isaac could tell she meant it. "I need to tend to the animals," he said, backing toward the door. "Make yourself at home. There's a pump out back for water if you want to wash up." Beatrice nodded, already settling on the edge of the bed, cradling Emma close. The exhaustion in her posture was evident now that she felt safe enough to show it. Isaac left her to rest and returned to his chores, his mind whirling with questions about his mysterious guests. Where exactly had she come from? What was she running from? And most importantly, how long would she stay throughout the day? Isaac found himself working with unusual efficiency, finishing tasks that normally took him hours. By mid-afternoon, he had fed and watered the animals, mended a broken fence post, and checked on his small herd grazing in the north pasture. All the while, his thoughts kept returning to the woman and child sleeping in his house. When he finally returned, the smell of cooking greeted him at the door. Beatrice stood at the stove, stirring something in his cast iron pot. Her hair was damp and pulled back in a simple knot, her face clean of the dirt that had smudged it earlier. She'd changed into a plain blue dress that looked freshly shaken out. "You didn't have to cook," Isaac said, hanging his hat on a peg by the door. "I wanted to," she replied, not looking up from her task. "It's the least I can do. I found some vegetables in your garden and made a stew with the leftover bacon." Isaac glanced around the room and noticed it was tidier than he'd left it. The floor had been swept, the dishes from breakfast washed and put away, and even the windowsills looked cleaner. "You've been busy," he observed. "Keeping busy helps me think," Beatrice said. She nodded toward the bedroom. "Emma's sleeping. She needed it after our journey." Isaac washed up at the basin near the door, then took a seat at the table. He watched as Beatrice moved around his kitchen with surprising confidence for someone who'd been there less than a day. "How's your foot?" he asked. "Better. I found some salve in your cabinet and used a bit. I hope you don't mind." "Not at all." Beatrice brought 2 bowls of stew to the table, then sat across from him. For a moment, neither spoke, the only sound the clink of spoons against crockery. "This is good," Isaac said after a few bites. "Been a while since I had a home-cooked meal I didn't make myself." A ghost of a smile touched Beatrice's lips. "I had to learn to cook when I was young. My mother died when I was 12 and my father." She trailed off, her expression clouding. "You don't have to tell me anything you don't want to," Isaac assured her. Beatrice nodded gratefully and continued eating. After a few minutes, she spoke again, her voice carefully neutral. "How long have you lived here?" 5 years. Bought the place when it was little more than a shack and some overgrazed land. Previous owner died of pneumonia and his family back east wanted to sell quick. "You've done well with it." Isaac shrugged. "It's a living, not getting rich, but I answer to no one but myself." He paused, studying her. "What about you? Besides Denver, where do you call home?" Beatrice set down her spoon, her eyes fixed on the table. "I don't know that I have one anymore." Before Isaac could respond, a cry came from the bedroom, Emma awakening from her nap. Beatrice immediately rose to tend to her, leaving Isaac alone with his thoughts and half-finished stew. When she returned with Emma, the baby was awake and alert, her tiny hands grasping at the air. Isaac was struck by the infant's bright blue eyes, so like her mother's. "She's looking for adventure," Beatrice said with a hint of amusement, the first real lightness he'd heard in her voice. "How old is she?" Isaac asked. "Almost 3 months." Isaac nodded, trying to imagine what circumstances would drive a woman with such a young baby to flee across 80 miles of rough country. Nothing good, he was certain. As evening fell, Isaac lit the lamps and built up the fire against the cooling night air. Beatrice sat in the chair nearest the hearth, Emma dozing against her chest. The firelight cast a warm glow over them both, softening the worry lines around Beatrice's eyes. "I'll be heading into town day after tomorrow for supplies," Isaac said as he settled into his own chair. "Is there anything you need?" Beatrice bit her lip, clearly uncomfortable with the idea of asking for anything more. I could use some cloth for diapers and perhaps some soap." "Write a list and I'll see what I can get." He hesitated, then added, "Do you want me to keep quiet about you being here?" Her head snapped up, fear flashing in her eyes. "Yes, please, I can't. I don't want anyone to know where we are." "All right," Isaac agreed. "Far as anyone in town knows, I'm still living alone out here." Relief visibly washed over Beatrice. "Thank you." That night, after Beatrice and Emma had retired to the spare bedroom, Isaac lay awake longer than usual, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of his house with other people in it. Occasionally, he heard the soft murmur of Beatrice's voice as she soothed Emma back to sleep after a feeding. It was strange having others under his roof. He'd lived alone since coming west 12 years ago, but not unpleasant. Morning arrived with a new sound, Emma's hungry cries greeting the dawn. Isaac had always risen with the sun, but now he woke to the baby's calls instead of the rooster's crow. By the time he'd pulled on his clothes and boots, the crying had subsided, replaced by Beatrice's gentle humming. He found her in the kitchen, Emma cradled in one arm while she attempted to start the fire with the other. Without a word, Isaac stepped in to help, arranging kindling and striking a match. "I was trying not to wake you," Beatrice said apologetically. "Been getting up at this hour for years," Isaac assured her, "though I'm used to different morning music." As the flames caught and began to warm the room, Isaac set about preparing breakfast while Beatrice finished feeding Emma. There was an easy rhythm to their movements, as if they'd been sharing this space for much longer than a single day. "I thought I might wash some clothes today," Beatrice said as they ate. "Mine need it badly, and I noticed a basket of yours by the washboard." "You don't have to do my laundry," Isaac protested. "Please," she insisted. "Let me earn my keep. I've been thinking about what you said yesterday about discussing work. I want to help around here, not just be a charity case." Isaac considered her determined expression and nodded. "All right. But don't overdo it. You're still recovering from your journey." After breakfast, Isaac headed out to his chores, leaving Beatrice to her self-appointed tasks. Throughout the morning, as he mended fences and checked on a pregnant heifer, he found himself glancing back at the house more often than usual. Several times he spotted Beatrice hanging laundry on the line, Emma bundled and sleeping in a makeshift cradle fashioned from a wooden box padded with blankets. By midday, when Isaac returned for a quick meal, the house had undergone a transformation. The floors gleamed from scrubbing, the windows sparkled in the sunlight, and the smell of fresh bread filled the air. "You've been busy," he said, genuinely impressed. Beatrice looked up from where she was kneading a second batch of dough. A smudge of flour marked her cheek, and for the first time, Isaac noticed a sprinkling of freckles across her nose. "I found your mother's recipe book," she explained, nodding toward an old leather-bound volume on the table. "Hope you don't mind. The bread recipe looked simple enough." "I haven't used that book in years," Isaac admitted. "Never had much talent for baking. My mother taught me that a home needs fresh bread." A shadow crossed Beatrice's face. At least, that's what she believed. They ate lunch together, the fresh bread making even the simple meal of cheese and dried meat seem special. Emma awoke and joined them, lying contentedly on a blanket spread on the clean floor, cooing at the ceiling beams. "She likes you," Beatrice remarked when Emma's gaze followed Isaac as he moved around the room. "Babies are good judges of character," Isaac said, surprising himself with the sentiment. He'd had little experience with infants but found Emma's presence oddly comforting. "Yes, they are," Beatrice agreed softly. That afternoon, while Isaac repaired a leak in the barn roof, Beatrice ventured outside with Emma to explore the immediate surroundings of the ranch. From his perch on the roof, Isaac watched as she walked slowly around the house, pointing things out to the baby: the chicken coop, the vegetable garden, the 2 horses grazing in the small paddock. There was something about the sight that made Isaac's chest tighten. It had been a long time since he'd shared his life with anyone, and though Beatrice and Emma had been there barely a day, their presence already felt natural, as if filling a space that had always been empty. The next morning, Isaac woke again to Emma's cries, but this time they were different, more urgent, almost panicked. He jumped out of bed and hurried to the spare room, knocking lightly on the door. "Beatrice, everything all right?" The door opened to reveal Beatrice, her face drawn with worry. Emma wailed in her arms, her tiny face flushed red. "She's burning up," Beatrice said, her voice trembling. "She's never been sick before. I don't know what to do." Isaac stepped closer, placing a gentle hand on Emma's forehead. The baby was indeed hot to the touch, her cries weak but persistent. "Let me see her," he said, and to his surprise, Beatrice immediately handed Emma to him. The trust implicit in that gesture was not lost on Isaac. He carried Emma to the main room where the light was better, Beatrice following closely behind. Carefully, he unwrapped the blanket and examined the baby, remembering what his mother had taught him about caring for his younger siblings when they fell ill. "How long has she been like this?" he asked. "She was fussy during the night, but the fever only came on strongly an hour ago." Beatrice wrung her hands. "It's my fault. I should never have taken her outside yesterday. The journey must have weakened her, and then the change in air. This isn't your fault," Isaac interrupted firmly. "Babies get sick sometimes. I think it's just a fever, not anything serious." "What do we do?" Isaac thought for a moment. "My mother used to make a tea from willow bark for fevers, and cool cloths to bring the heat down. Let me get some water boiling." While Isaac prepared the weak tea, Beatrice bathed Emma with cool water, murmuring reassurances that seemed as much for herself as for her daughter. Isaac was struck by the fierce love evident in every gentle touch, every worried glance. "Here," he said when the tea was ready. "Just a few drops on her tongue. It's very mild, won't hurt her." Beatrice followed his instructions, carefully letting the liquid trickle into Emma's mouth. The baby grimaced at the bitter taste but swallowed, her cries subsiding slightly. "Now we wait," Isaac said. "Keep using the cool cloths and we'll give her more tea in a couple of hours." Beatrice nodded, cradling Emma close. "Thank you," she whispered. "I don't know what I would have done if—" "You don't have to thank me," Isaac said simply. "You're not alone anymore." The words hung in the air between them, carrying more weight than perhaps either of them intended. Beatrice's eyes met his, filled with a complex mixture of gratitude and something else, something that made Isaac's heart beat a little faster. Throughout the day, they took turns tending to Emma. The fever persisted, but by evening it had begun to subside and the baby was sleeping more peacefully. Beatrice, however, refused to leave her side, keeping vigil in the rocking chair Isaac had dragged in from the porch. "You need rest too," Isaac told her as night fell. "She's doing better. The worst is over." "I can't leave her," Beatrice insisted. "What if the fever comes back? Then I'll wake you." He placed a hand gently on her shoulder. "You're exhausted, Beatrice. You can't care for her if you collapse yourself." After much persuasion, Beatrice finally agreed to lie down on the sofa where she could still see Emma's makeshift cradle. Isaac covered her with a blanket and promised to watch over the baby while she slept. In the quiet hours that followed, as Isaac sat beside Emma's cradle, occasionally checking her forehead and adjusting her blankets, he found himself reflecting on the strange turn his life had taken. 3 days ago, he'd been entirely alone, content in his solitude. Now his house was filled with the presence of a woman and child who had somehow, in an astonishingly short time, begun to matter to him. Emma stirred in her sleep, making small noises that Isaac was already learning to interpret. He gently rocked the cradle with his foot, the way he'd seen Beatrice do, and the baby settled again. Across the room, Beatrice slept deeply, the worry lines on her face smoothed out in repose. In sleep, she looked younger, more vulnerable. Isaac wondered about her story, what she was running from, why she had no one else to turn to. She'd mentioned her mother dying young and had alluded to some trouble with her father, but beyond that, she remained a mystery. And what of Emma's father? Isaac had carefully avoided asking, sensing it was a painful subject, but he couldn't help wondering. Was the man dead? Had he abandoned them? Or was he perhaps the very danger Beatrice was fleeing? Morning came, and with it, the welcome discovery that Emma's fever had broken completely. The baby was her usual alert self, gurgling happily when Isaac leaned over her cradle to check on her. Beatrice woke with a start, immediately looking toward her daughter. The relief on her face when she saw Emma healthy again was palpable. "She's fine," Isaac assured her. "Fever's gone, and she's been making happy noises for the past half hour." Beatrice rose quickly, crossing to the cradle to see for herself. She lifted Emma into her arms, pressing her lips to the baby's forehead to confirm the absence of fever. "Thank God," she breathed. "And thank you, Isaac. I don't know how I can ever repay you." "No need," he said, suddenly uncomfortable with her gratitude. "I'm heading into town today for those supplies. Will you two be all right here alone?" "We'll be fine," Beatrice assured him. "Please don't worry about us." After a quick breakfast, Isaac hitched his wagon and prepared for the journey to Silver Creek. Before leaving, he showed Beatrice where he kept his rifle and how to use it if necessary. "I don't expect any trouble," he said, "but better you know how to protect yourself." Beatrice handled the weapon with surprising confidence. "My father taught me to shoot when I was young," she explained. Before things changed." Isaac nodded, not pressing for details. "I should be back by sundown. If not, don't worry." Sometimes business in town takes longer than expected. The 10-mile journey to Silver Creek gave Isaac time to think. He needed a story to explain his unusual purchases. Baby supplies would certainly raise eyebrows in a town where everyone knew he lived alone. He settled on claiming they were for his sister, who lived in Denver and had recently had a child. It wasn't a complete lie. He did have a sister in Denver, though they hadn't spoken in years. Silver Creek was a growing settlement, boasting a general store, saloon, hotel, blacksmith, and even a small church. As Isaac drove down the main street, he nodded greetings to the familiar faces of townspeople. He'd never been one for socializing, preferring to complete his business efficiently and return to the solitude of his ranch. But he maintained cordial relationships with most of the locals. At the general store, he carefully selected the items from Beatrice's list, along with his usual supplies. Mr. Peterson, the storekeeper, raised an eyebrow at the baby items. "Expecting company, Vaughn?" he asked as he tallied the purchases. "Gifts for my sister in Denver," Isaac replied smoothly. "Just had a baby girl." Peterson nodded. "Congratulations to her then." "Didn't know you had family in these parts." "We're not close," Isaac said, hoping to discourage further questions. "Just trying to mend fences a bit." After paying for his supplies, Isaac headed to the post office to check for mail. He rarely received anything beyond the occasional catalog or newspaper, but it was part of his town routine. Today, however, the postmaster handed him an envelope. "Came in yesterday's delivery," the man said. Isaac examined the letter, surprised to see his sister's handwriting on the envelope. Speaking of her must have conjured her somehow. He tucked the letter into his pocket, deciding to read it later in private. His next stop was the blacksmith, where he needed horseshoes for his mare. As he waited for the smith to finish with another customer, Isaac overheard two men talking near the water trough. "Offering $100 reward," one was saying. "Said she stole family heirlooms when she ran off." "A woman traveling alone with a baby," the other replied skeptically. "Doesn't sound like a thief to me." Isaac stiffened, his attention fully captured now. "Well, that's what the notice said. Young woman, dark hair, blue eyes with an infant girl, left Denver about a week ago, possibly heading south or west." "What's this man's name again?" "Russell." "Charles Russell. Says he's a businessman from Denver looking for his daughter and grandchild." Isaac's heart raced. Russell, Beatrice's surname. This had to be her father, the man she was running from, and he was looking for her, spinning tales about stolen heirlooms to justify his search. "Seen the notices anywhere around here?" the first man asked. "Not yet, but I heard he's hired men to distribute them throughout the territory. Seems mighty determined to find this girl." Isaac forced himself to appear casual as the blacksmith finally turned his attention to him. He completed his business as quickly as possible, his mind working furiously. If Charles Russell's men came to Silver Creek with those notices, someone was bound to remember Isaac buying baby supplies today. The connection wouldn't be hard to make. He needed to warn Beatrice, but first he needed more information. On his way back through town, Isaac stopped at the saloon, a place he rarely frequented. The bartender, a man named Sullivan, greeted him with surprise. "Vaughn, don't often see you in here. What can I get you?" "Whiskey," Isaac said, sliding onto a stool, "and some information if you have it." Sullivan poured the drink and leaned on the bar. "What sort of information?" "Heard some fellows talking about reward notices for a missing woman and child. Name of Russell from Denver. Know anything about it?" Sullivan's eyebrows rose. "Matter of fact, I do. A man came through 2 days ago posting those notices. Fancy fellow, didn't look like he belonged out here. Said his daughter had run off with his grandchild, took some valuable jewelry with her." "Did he say why she ran?" "Claimed she was unstable after her husband died in an accident. Said she blamed him for it somehow and needed medical attention." Sullivan shrugged. Seemed concerned enough, though something about him didn't sit right with me. Isaac nodded, sipping his whiskey slowly. This man's still around. No, moved on south toward Willow Creek. But he left one of his men here to watch for the girl. Big fellow, scar on his cheek, calls himself Miller. Appreciate the information, Isaac said, finishing his drink and placing a coin on the bar. Any idea where I might find this Miller? Staying at the hotel. But listen, Vaughn, he doesn't strike me as the friendly sort. Whatever business you have with him, tread carefully. Isaac left the saloon and walked slowly past the hotel, scanning the porch and windows for anyone matching Miller's description. No one fitting the bill was visible, which was probably for the best. Confronting the man directly would only raise suspicions. Instead, Isaac returned to his wagon and quickly loaded his purchases, eager now to return to the ranch and warn Beatrice. As he prepared to leave town, a commotion near the sheriff's office caught his attention. A crowd had gathered to watch as two men argued loudly on the street. One was Sheriff Davis, and the other a tall man with a visible scar on his right cheek must be Miller. Isaac hung back, listening. I have every right to search for a fugitive, Miller was saying, his voice carrying easily to where Isaac stood. Not without proper documentation, you don't, the sheriff countered. A reward notice isn't a warrant, and I need more than your word that this woman is a thief. Mr. Russell is a respected businessman. Not in my jurisdiction, he isn't. Until I receive official word from the Denver authorities, you have no special privileges here. You can ask around like any other citizen, but that's it. Miller's face darkened with anger, but he seemed to recognize he wouldn't win this argument. Fine, but when I find her, I'll expect your cooperation. If you find evidence of an actual crime, bring it to me, Sheriff Davis said firmly. Now, I suggest you cool your heels and stop harassing my townspeople with your questions. The crowd began to disperse as the confrontation ended. Isaac quickly climbed onto his wagon and snapped the reins, wanting to be well away before Miller might notice him. As the wagon rolled out of town, his mind was filled with worry for Beatrice and Emma. Whatever Charles Russell had planned, it clearly involved using the law to reclaim his daughter and grandchild, and Isaac was now certain that Beatrice had good reason to run. The journey back to the ranch seemed to take twice as long as usual, though Isaac pushed his horses harder than he normally would. By the time he pulled up to the house, the sun was already beginning its descent toward the western horizon. Beatrice must have heard the wagon approaching, for she appeared in the doorway as Isaac jumped down, Emma balanced on her hip. The smile that had started to form on her face faded quickly when she saw his expression. "What's wrong?" she asked, stepping back to let him enter the house. Isaac unloaded the most important supplies before answering, bringing them inside and closing the door firmly behind him. "Your father is looking for you," he said without preamble. "He's posted reward notices throughout the territory, claiming you stole family heirlooms and need medical attention. He has men searching, including one in Silver Creek." The color drained from Beatrice's face. She clutched Emma tighter, sinking into a chair as her legs seemed to give way beneath her. "He found me," she whispered. "So quickly." Isaac knelt before her, his hands hovering uncertainly before settling on the arms of her chair. "Beatrice, I need to know what we're dealing with here. Why are you running from your father? What does he want with you and Emma?" For a long moment she said nothing, her eyes fixed on some point beyond Isaac's shoulder. When she finally spoke, her voice was flat, as if distancing herself from the words. "My father is Charles Russell, a businessman in Denver. He deals in mining investments, land speculation, and other enterprises. He's wealthy and well-connected." She swallowed hard. "I married Ian Miller when I was 18. It was arranged by my father. Ian was the son of his business partner. The marriage wasn't happy," Beatrice gave a bitter laugh. "Ian was cruel but skilled at hiding it from others. For 2 years I endured his attentions. When I discovered I was expecting Emma, I hoped things might improve. Instead, they worsened." She paused, unconsciously stroking Emma's head. 3 months before Emma was born, Ian died. His horse threw him during a hunting trip. My father was furious, blamed me somehow, as if I'd wished Ian's death into being. And after Emma was born, my father became obsessed with her. Said she was the last connection to his partner's legacy, that she would inherit both families' wealth someday. Beatrice's eyes filled with tears. He tried to take her from me, claimed I was unfit. When that didn't work, he began making arrangements. What kind of arrangements? Isaac asked, though he feared he knew the answer. Marriage. To another of his associates, a man 40 years my senior with grown children older than me. The agreement included that Emma would be raised by him and my father, not by me. Isaac's hands tightened on the chair arms. So you ran? I had to. My father controls everything in Denver, the police, the courts. He would have taken her. Beatrice looked down at Emma, who had fallen asleep against her chest. I couldn't let that happen. I couldn't let her grow up in that house with him. The law would be on your side, Isaac suggested. You're her mother. You don't know my father, Beatrice said darkly. He would find a way, claim I'm insane with grief, have me committed. He's done it before to others who crossed him. Isaac stood, pacing the small room as he processed this information. The man in town, Miller, he's related to your late husband, Ian's brother. He works for my father as an enforcer of sorts. Fear flashed in Beatrice's eyes. If Miller is here, we're not safe. I need to leave tonight. No, Isaac said firmly. Running now would be dangerous. They're watching the roads and you and Emma are still recovering. Besides, the sheriff in town doesn't seem inclined to help Miller without official documentation. That won't stop him for long. My father will simply buy whatever documentation he needs. Isaac considered their options. My ranch is isolated enough. They don't know you're here yet, and I'm not a man who invites visitors. We have time to plan properly. We, Beatrice echoed, surprise evident in her voice. Yes, we, Isaac confirmed, surprising himself with his certainty. I'm not sending you and Emma back to that man, Beatrice. Whatever happens, you're not facing this alone anymore. Tears welled in Beatrice's eyes, but she quickly blinked them away. Why would you risk yourself for us? You barely know me. Isaac couldn't fully articulate the reasons himself. Something about Beatrice and Emma had awakened protective instincts he hadn't known he possessed, along with other feelings he wasn't ready to examine closely. Let's just say I have my own reasons for distrusting men like your father, he said simply. Now I've brought everything you asked for plus some extra supplies. Tomorrow we'll discuss a more permanent solution, but for tonight try to rest. That night, Isaac lay awake long after the house had gone quiet, turning over various plans in his mind. The simplest solution would be for Beatrice and Emma to move on, perhaps to California or even farther north into the Washington territory, where Charles Russell's influence might not reach. But the journey would be perilous for a woman and infant alone, especially with winter approaching. He could accompany them, see them safely established somewhere new, but that would mean abandoning his ranch, the life he'd built here. And even that might not be enough if Russell was as determined and resourceful as Beatrice believed. No, what Beatrice needed was legal protection, a shield against her father's claims. And as Isaac considered this problem from every angle, one solution began to take shape in his mind. It was unconventional, perhaps even improper given how little time they'd known each other, but it might be the only way to ensure Beatrice and Emma's safety. With this tentative plan forming, Isaac finally drifted into an uneasy sleep, only to be awakened what seemed like minutes later by Emma's now familiar morning cry. Sunlight streamed through the windows. He'd slept later than usual. In the main room, he found Beatrice already up, feeding Emma while a pot of coffee bubbled on the stove. She looked tired but calmer than the previous evening. Morning, Isaac greeted her, pouring himself coffee. How are you feeling today? Better, she admitted, clearer-headed. I'm sorry for panicking yesterday. You had every right to be frightened. He sat across from her, cradling his mug between his hands. I've been thinking about your situation. And Isaac took a deep breath. What he was about to propose was either the most sensible or the most foolish idea he'd ever had. "I think you should stay here," he began carefully. "Not just for now, but permanently. My ranch is remote enough that you could live peacefully here and I can provide for you and Emma." Beatrice looked at him with confusion. "As what, your housekeeper? As my wife?" The word hung in the air between them. Beatrice's eyes widened and for a moment she seemed unable to speak. That's not. I can't ask you to do that," she finally stammered. "You're not asking." "I'm offering." Isaac leaned forward, his expression earnest. "Think about it, Beatrice. As my wife, you'd have legal protection. Your father couldn't force you into another marriage or take Emma from you. We could claim we wed months ago, before Emma was born, making her legally my child as well." "But marriage it's a lifetime commitment," Beatrice protested. "You barely know me." "I know enough," Isaac said quietly. "I know you're brave and resourceful. I know you love your daughter fiercely. And I know that in just a few days, you've made this place feel more like a home than it has in all the years I've lived here." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "I'm not proposing a love match. I'm offering you protection, security, a partnership. We can establish whatever terms make you comfortable." Beatrice looked down at Emma, who had finished nursing and was now contentedly chewing on her own fist. "And what do you gain from this arrangement? You'd be taking on a woman with a complicated past and a child not your own." Isaac hadn't fully examined his own motivations, but he knew they went beyond simple charity. "I gain companionship," he said honestly. "Someone to share the work of this place, yes, but also someone to share my life with. I've been alone a long time, Beatrice, perhaps too long." She studied him intently, as if trying to read his true intentions. "And if I agreed, what would you expect from me? As a wife?" The question carried heavy implications and Isaac chose his words carefully. "Only what you're willing to give. I would never force anything. We could begin as friends, partners. If more develops between us with time, so be it. If not, I would still honor our arrangement. And Emma, I would treat her as my own," Isaac promised. "She would grow up knowing only safety and care, never fear." Beatrice was silent for a long time, her gaze alternating between Emma and Isaac. He could almost see the thoughts racing behind her eyes, weighing risks, considering alternatives, imagining futures. "I need time to think," she finally said. "This is unexpected." "Of course," Isaac agreed, relieved she hadn't outright rejected the idea. "Take all the time you need. The offer stands." The day passed in a strange combination of normal routines and heightened awareness. Isaac attended to his ranch duties while Beatrice cared for Emma and continued making improvements to the house. They spoke little, each giving the other space to think, though Isaac frequently found himself watching Beatrice as she moved about the house, wondering if she could truly see herself building a life here with him. By evening, a new tension had settled between them, not unpleasant, but charged with unspoken thoughts and questions. They ate dinner together, discussing safe topics like the weather and Isaac's cattle, carefully avoiding the proposal that hung in the air. After the meal, as Isaac stoked the fire for the night, Beatrice spoke suddenly from where she sat rocking Emma. "I have conditions," she said, her voice steady. Isaac turned to face her, heart quickening. "I'm listening. If I agree to this marriage, it must be a true partnership. I want your word that you will never treat me as property, never make decisions about my life or Emma's without consulting me." "You have it," Isaac said without hesitation. "I want to learn everything about running this ranch," she continued. "Not just the household duties, but the business side as well. If this is to be my home, I want to contribute fully to its success." "That's more than fair." Beatrice took a deep breath. "And regarding marital relations, I need time, Isaac. My experiences with Ian were difficult. I'm not sure when or if I could." "We progress at your pace," Isaac assured her. "If that means we never share that aspect of marriage, I can accept it." "You say that now, but I mean it," he interrupted gently. "I would never demand what isn't freely given, Beatrice. That's not the kind of man I am." She nodded slowly, seemingly satisfied with his response. Then there's one last condition. If at any point this arrangement becomes unbearable for either of us, we find a civilized way to end it, no trapping each other in misery. Agreed. Isaac moved closer, kneeling beside her chair. Does this mean you accept? Beatrice looked down at Emma, then back at Isaac. Yes, she said softly. For Emma's sake and, perhaps for both our sakes, I accept your proposal. Relief and something like happiness flooded through Isaac. Then we should make it official as soon as possible. I can ride to Silver Creek tomorrow, speak with the minister. Is that wise? With Miller still in town, Isaac considered this. You're right. Better not to draw attention yet. The circuit judge passes through Willow Creek in 2 weeks. We could go there instead. It's in the opposite direction from where your father is searching. 2 weeks, Beatrice repeated. What if someone comes looking here before then? As far as anyone knows, I live alone, Isaac reminded her. If strangers approach, you and Emma can hide in the root cellar beneath the house. There's a trapdoor under the rug in my bedroom, well concealed. Beatrice reached out hesitantly and placed her hand over his. Thank you, Isaac, for everything. The touch of her hand sent an unexpected warmth through him. You don't need to thank me, he said, echoing his words from days earlier. We're helping each other now. The following days brought a subtle shift in the atmosphere between them. With the decision made, Beatrice seemed to relax into her role in Isaac's home, no longer treating it as a temporary refuge, but as a place she might truly belong. She began learning the rhythms of ranch life, asking questions about the cattle, the crops in the small fields, the financial aspects of the operation. For his part, Isaac found himself opening up more than he had in years. Over meals and evening conversations, he shared stories of his journey west as a young man of 20, his years working cattle drives, and eventually saving enough to purchase this land. He spoke of his family back east, parents long dead, a sister in Denver with whom relations were strained, a brother somewhere in Texas he hadn't seen in a decade. Why did you choose to live so isolated? Beatrice asked one evening as they sat on the porch, watching the sunset. Emma was asleep inside, allowing them a rare quiet moment together. Isaac considered the question. Wasn't really a conscious choice at first, just needed my own piece of land, somewhere I answered to no one but myself. Then, as years passed, I got used to the solitude. He glanced at her. Until now, I never much thought about what I might be missing, Beatrice smiled softly. And now I wonder how I managed all these years with no one to talk to but the cattle and horses. Their laughter mingled in the cooling evening air, and Isaac marveled at how quickly Beatrice had come to feel essential to his world. It wasn't love, not yet, but it was something with the potential to grow into that emotion, given time and nurturing. On the morning of their 10th day together, as they were finishing breakfast, the sound of approaching horses broke the peaceful quiet. Isaac immediately tensed, moving to the window to peer out. 2 riders, he reported quietly. Not Miller, but they look like the type who might work for your father. Hired guns. Fear flashed across Beatrice's face. They've found us. We don't know that, Isaac cautioned, though he shared her concern. Remember the plan. Take Emma to the root cellar. Stay absolutely quiet, no matter what you hear. Beatrice gathered Emma quickly, following Isaac to his bedroom where he pulled back the rug to reveal the trapdoor. The space below was small but clean, stocked with supplies in case of severe weather or Indian attacks, neither of which had materialized in Isaac's time on the ranch, but he believed in preparation. I'll come for you when it's safe, he promised as she descended the ladder. Emma clutched tightly to her chest. Once the trapdoor was secure and the rug replaced, Isaac returned to the main room, grabbing his rifle from above the fireplace. He stepped onto the porch just as the riders reached the yard, his weapon held casually but visibly. Morning, he greeted them, keeping his tone neutral. Something I can help you with. The men reined in their horses, studying the ranch and Isaac with calculating eyes. They were rough-looking fellows, trail-worn and hard-faced. The older of the two, a man with a graying beard and a scar across his forehead, spoke first. "Looking for a woman," he said bluntly. "Young, dark-haired, with a baby, name's Beatrice Russell. Her father's offering a reward for information on her whereabouts." Isaac leaned against the porch post, keeping his expression carefully disinterested. "Haven't seen anyone matching that description. Don't get many visitors out this way." The second man, younger and more overtly hostile in demeanor, narrowed his eyes. "Mind if we look around? Make sure she's not hiding out here." "Actually, I do mind," Isaac replied evenly. "This is private property. Unless you have some legal authority to search my land, I'll have to ask you to move on." "We're working with the authority of Charles Russell," the older man said, as if the name alone should open all doors. "Don't know the man," Isaac said, "and his name doesn't carry any weight on my ranch. Now I've got work to do, so unless you have something else to discuss." The younger man started to protest, but his companion silenced him with a gesture. "If you do see her, there's good money in it. $100, no questions asked." "I'll keep that in mind," Isaac said noncommittally. The men lingered a moment longer, their eyes scanning the property suspiciously. Isaac remained still, his rifle a constant reminder of whose land they stood on. Finally, with reluctant nods, they turned their horses and rode away, heading back toward the main road. Isaac waited until they were well out of sight before returning inside and retrieving Beatrice and Emma from their hiding place. Beatrice emerged pale-faced but composed, Emma remarkably quiet in her arms. "They're gone for now," Isaac assured her, helping her out of the cellar. "But they'll be back, or others will. They're searching systematically." "What do we do?" Beatrice asked, her voice steady despite the fear evident in her eyes. Isaac made a quick decision. "We move up our plans. The judge won't be in Willow Creek for another week, but there's a magistrate in Copper Canyon about 20 miles north. We'll leave at first light tomorrow. Will it be safe to travel? Safer than staying here now that they've marked this place for checking." Isaac began mentally cataloging what they would need for the journey. "We'll take the wagon, make it look like a regular supply run. You and Emma will stay hidden under canvas until we're well away from any main roads." Beatrice nodded, her trust in his judgment apparent. "I'll pack our things and prepare food for the journey." They spent the rest of the day in careful preparation. Isaac checked the wagon, greased the axles, and prepared his horses for the longer trip. Beatrice packed clothing for herself and Emma, along with necessary supplies for the baby. She also baked bread and prepared foods that would travel well. By evening, they were ready. Isaac secured the house and barn as if he were leaving for a standard trip to town, nothing that would arouse suspicion if the men returned while they were gone. They ate a simple dinner, both too preoccupied with thoughts of the coming day to engage in much conversation. As Beatrice nursed Emma before bed, Isaac noticed her hands trembling slightly. "Are you having second thoughts?" he asked quietly. Beatrice looked up, surprise crossing her features. "About marrying you? No, I'm afraid yes, but not doubtful." She adjusted Emma in her arms. "I'm more certain of this decision than I've been of anything in a long time." Her words eased a tension in Isaac he hadn't realized was there. "Get some rest," he advised. "Tomorrow will be a long day." They rose before dawn, moving quietly through their preparations. Isaac harnessed the horses while Beatrice prepared a quick breakfast. Emma, sensing the unusual activity, was fussier than normal, but settled once Beatrice fed her. As the first pale light appeared on the eastern horizon, they loaded the final items into the wagon. Isaac had created a hidden space among their supplies where Beatrice and Emma could ride unseen, at least until they were safely away from areas where Russell's men might be watching. "Ready?" Isaac asked as he helped Beatrice climb into the concealed space. "Ready," she confirmed, settling Emma against her chest. "Isaac, thank you for everything." He squeezed her hand briefly before covering them with canvas. "We'll be in Copper Canyon by midday. With luck, we'll be husband and wife before sunset." The journey to Copper Canyon proceeded without incident. Isaac kept to lesser-used trails, avoiding the main roads where they might encounter other travelers. Mid-morning, once they were well away from areas where Russell's men might be searching, he allowed Beatrice and Emma to emerge from their hiding place and ride beside him on the wagon seat. "It's beautiful country," Beatrice remarked, gazing at the rolling hills and distant mountains. "I never had much chance to appreciate it during my flight from Denver. It grows on you," Isaac agreed, watching her profile against the landscape. "Harsh sometimes, but honest in its way. What you see is what you get out here." Beatrice smiled, adjusting Emma in her arms. "Like you." The comment caught Isaac off guard, warming him unexpectedly. "I try to be," he said simply. Copper Canyon was a smaller settlement than Silver Creek, primarily serving the needs of several nearby mining operations. The main street consisted of a general store, saloon, small hotel, a Sayers office, and a combined town hall and magistrate's court. Isaac directed the wagon to the latter building, helping Beatrice down carefully. "Wait here," he said, settling her on a bench outside the magistrate's office. "Let me make sure he's available before we go in together." Inside, Isaac found the magistrate, a balding man named Howard Jensen, reviewing documents at a cluttered desk. Jensen looked up with mild surprise at Isaac's entrance. "Help you with something?" he asked. "I'm hoping to get married today," Isaac said directly. "If you're available to perform the ceremony." Jensen raised his eyebrows. "That's rather sudden. Who's the bride?" "She's waiting outside." "We've been living together at my ranch near Silver Creek, but with a baby now, we thought it best to make things official." The partial truth seemed to satisfy Jensen, who nodded understandingly. "Got the paperwork right here. 50 cents for the license, another 50 for the ceremony." Isaac paid the fee and provided their names for the license. When asked for witnesses, Jensen suggested the general store owner and his wife, who had served in that capacity for many such impromptu weddings. "Give me half an hour to fetch them and prepare," Jensen said. "Meet back here then." Isaac returned to Beatrice and explained the arrangements. "We have some time. Do you need anything from the store? Something special for the occasion, perhaps?" Beatrice looked down at her simple blue dress, the best one she had, but hardly wedding attire. "I'm hardly in a position to be choosy," she said with a small smile. "But perhaps a ribbon for my hair, something blue for luck." They walked together to the general store, Emma contentedly looking around from her perch in Beatrice's arms. The storekeeper's wife, Mrs. Turner, was immediately charmed by the baby and delighted to hear she would be witnessing their wedding. "Oh, but dear, you must have something special," she insisted to Beatrice. "Wait here." She disappeared into the back of the store, returning moments later with a white lace shawl. "I've had this tucked away for years. My mother brought it from back east, but I never had occasion to wear it. Please take it as a wedding gift." Beatrice's eyes widened at the generous offer. "I couldn't possibly—" "Nonsense," Mrs. Turner interrupted kindly. "Every bride should have something beautiful on her wedding day, and look how it sets off your dark hair. Perfect with your blue dress, too." Touched by the woman's kindness, Beatrice accepted the gift, wrapping the delicate lace around her shoulders. Isaac purchased the blue ribbon as planned, along with a small silver pin shaped like a flower, another unexpected gift for his bride. By the time they returned to the magistrate's office, Beatrice looked transformed. With her hair neatly arranged with the blue ribbon, the lace shawl draped elegantly around her shoulders, and the silver pin fastened at her throat, she appeared every inch a proper bride. Isaac, who had brushed his coat and slicked back his hair with water, felt suddenly inadequate beside her radiance. "You look beautiful," he told her quietly as they waited for the magistrate to call them in. Beatrice blushed, adjusting Emma's blanket. "Thank you. I never thought I'd have a proper wedding day again." "Is this proper enough?" Isaac asked, suddenly concerned that his simple arrangements fell short of what she deserved. "It's perfect," she assured him, her eyes meeting his with surprising warmth. "More perfect than my first wedding, if truth be told. That was all for show, for my father's business connections. This is for us." The us in her statement included Emma, Isaac knew, but he found himself hoping it might someday mean something more between just the two of them as well. The ceremony itself was brief but dignified. Magistrate Jensen, sensing perhaps that this was more than a mere legalization of an existing arrangement, added touches of formality to his usual proceedings. Mrs. Turner held Emma while the vows were exchanged, the baby remarkably quiet throughout, as if understanding the importance of the moment. When Isaac placed the simple gold band he'd purchased at the general store on Beatrice's finger, he was surprised by the emotion that welled within him. This had begun as a practical solution to her predicament, yet standing before her, promising to protect and cherish her and Emma, he realized his feelings had already grown beyond mere partnership. By the authority vested in me by the Colorado Territory, I now pronounce you husband and wife, Jensen declared. You may kiss your bride, Mr. Vaughn. Isaac hesitated, uncertain how Beatrice would feel about this traditional conclusion. They had not discussed this aspect of the ceremony, and he had no wish to make her uncomfortable. But as he looked into her eyes, seeking guidance, she gave an almost imperceptible nod. Gently, Isaac leaned forward and pressed his lips to hers in a chaste but tender kiss. It lasted only a moment, yet in that brief connection, something shifted between them, a promise of possibilities neither had anticipated. The Turners insisted on hosting a small celebration in their home above the store, providing a simple but festive wedding supper. Emma was passed admiringly between Mrs. Turner and the magistrate's wife, giving Beatrice and Isaac a rare opportunity to focus solely on each other. I never properly thanked you, Beatrice said quietly as they sat side by side at the Turners' table. For doing this, for risking so much for us. No risk, Isaac corrected her. Only gain as far as I'm concerned. Her smile in response held a warmth that kindled hope in his chest. Perhaps with time this marriage of convenience might grow into something truer, deeper than either had dared imagine. By late afternoon, it was time to begin the journey home. They bid farewell to the Turners and Magistrate Jensen, who provided them with an official marriage certificate, their shield against Charles Russell's machinations. As they drove away from Copper Canyon, Beatrice, now officially Mrs. Beatrice Vaughn, Isaac felt a curious mixture of accomplishment and anticipation. They had overcome the first hurdle in securing her and Emma's safety, but the greater challenge lay ahead, building a genuine life together. What happens now? Beatrice asked as the settlement disappeared behind them, Emma sleeping peacefully in her lap. Now we go home, Isaac said simply, and begin our life together. And my father, if he comes, will face him together. With our marriage certificate and the story we've created that we met last year, wed quickly, and Emma is mine, his claims will hold no legal weight. Isaac glanced at her. We'll need to be careful for a while, limit trips to town, be prepared for visitors. But eventually he'll have to accept that he's lost. Beatrice nodded, though concern still shadowed her eyes. You don't know him as I do, he's not a man who accepts defeat easily. Neither am I, Isaac assured her, and I have something he doesn't. What's that? The truth on my side. And a family worth fighting for. The word family hung between them, new and significant. Beatrice looked down at Emma, then back at Isaac, her expression softening. Yes, she agreed quietly. A family. They reached the ranch as dusk was falling. The familiar silhouette of the house and barn against the darkening sky, a welcome sight. As Isaac helped Beatrice down from the wagon, Emma still sleeping in her arms, he was struck by how right it felt to be returning home with them, not as temporary guests, but as his wife and child. Welcome home, Mrs. Vaughn, he said softly. Beatrice looked up at the house, then back at him, a smile blooming on her face. It feels like home already, she admitted, more than anywhere has in a very long time. Inside, Isaac built up the fire while Beatrice settled Emma in the cradle he'd constructed during their brief time together. The simple wooden structure, crafted from pine boards with careful attention to comfort and safety, had been his first gift to them, an unspoken promise of his commitment before he'd found the words to offer marriage. As they moved around the house, preparing a light supper and attending to the evening chores, Isaac was acutely aware of the changed nature of their relationship. Though they had lived under the same roof for nearly 2 weeks, tonight was different. Tonight they were husband and wife, bound by law and promises spoken. The question of sleeping arrangements hung unaddressed between them. Isaac had no intention of pressuring Beatrice, remembering well his promise to progress at her pace, if at all. He prepared to make his bed on the sofa as he had done since Emma's illness, giving Beatrice and the baby the privacy of the bedrooms. "You don't have to sleep out here," Beatrice said suddenly, appearing in the doorway as he arranged blankets on the sofa. "The main bedroom is yours." "I won't take it from you. I'm fine here," Isaac assured her. "You and Emma need the space and privacy." Beatrice bit her lip, seeming to struggle with something. "What I mean is, we could share. The room, that is, not. I'm not ready for more, but I don't want to banish you from your own bed." Isaac studied her, trying to gauge her sincerity. "Are you certain? I don't want you to feel obligated because of our vows." "I'm certain," she said, more firmly now. "Emma's cradle fits in there and the bed is large enough. We're husband and wife now, even if it's not a conventional marriage yet." That night, they established a new routine. Emma's cradle was placed near Beatrice's side of the bed. They took turns using the bedroom to change into nightclothes, Beatrice into a modest white nightgown, Isaac into clean drawers and an undershirt. When they finally lay side by side in the darkness, a careful space maintained between them, the situation felt both strange and oddly natural. "Good night, Isaac," Beatrice whispered. "Good night, Beatrice," he replied, staring up at the ceiling, acutely aware of her presence beside him. "Sleep well." In the days that followed, they settled into life as a married couple, gradually becoming more comfortable with their new roles and relationship. Isaac returned to his ranch duties with renewed vigor, while Beatrice established her domain in the house and garden, all while caring for Emma. True to her conditions, Beatrice insisted on learning all aspects of ranch operations. She accompanied Isaac to check on the cattle, asked questions about the business ledgers, and began suggesting improvements to various systems. Her practical intelligence impressed him, as did her willingness to take on new challenges. "You're a natural at this," he commented one afternoon as they repaired a section of fence together. Emma napping in a padded basket nearby, Beatrice smiled, clearly pleased by the compliment. "I always wanted to do something meaningful with my hands and mind. My father believed women should be decorative and useful for making advantageous marriages, nothing more." "His loss," Isaac said simply. "My gain." These small moments of connection accumulated day by day, building a foundation of mutual respect and growing affection. At night, they continued to share the bed chastely, though Isaac sometimes woke to find Beatrice had moved closer in her sleep, occasionally with her hand resting on his arm or her head near his shoulder. He never mentioned these unconscious gestures, but treasured them as signs of her increasing trust. A month after their wedding, as winter began to settle over the Colorado territory, they received their first significant snowfall. Emma, now 4 months old, watched in fascination from the window as Isaac showed Beatrice how to properly bank the fires to maintain heat through the cold nights. "Winter can be isolating out here," he warned her. "We might go weeks without being able to reach town if the snows are heavy." "I don't mind," Beatrice said, surprising him. "It feels safer, knowing the weather keeps others away as well." She didn't need to specify who others meant. Though they had seen no sign of Russell's men since their wedding, the threat remained a shadow in their minds. Isaac had taken precautions, increasing his ammunition stores and reinforcing the locks on the house and barn. He'd also begun teaching Beatrice to shoot with greater accuracy, though she already had basic skills from her youth. "You're a quick study," he praised as she hit the target he'd set up behind the barn. "Better than many men I've known." My father thought a lady should know how to shoot for sport to impress potential husbands with her accomplishments, she explained, reloading the rifle with practiced ease. Little did he know I'd be using those skills to protect myself from him one day. As December arrived, bringing Christmas preparations, Isaac noticed a change in Beatrice's demeanor. She became quieter, more introspective, often staring out the window at the snow-covered landscape with a distant expression. "Is something troubling you?" he finally asked one evening as they sat before the fire, Emma already asleep in her cradle. Beatrice hesitated before answering. "Emma's first Christmas is approaching. I can't help thinking about how different her life is from what I imagined when I was carrying her. I thought she would be born into luxury, surrounded by nurses and fine things. Do you regret the choice you made, leaving that behind?" "Never," Beatrice said firmly. "But I do regret that she'll never know her grandparents, not just my father, who's dangerous, but my mother's family back east, good people who would have loved her," she sighed. "Sometimes I feel I've robbed her of half her heritage by running away." Isaac considered this. "You saved her from a life of control and manipulation. That's worth more than any inheritance or family connection." "I know you're right," Beatrice agreed, "but still I wish." "What do you wish?" Isaac prompted gently when she didn't continue. Beatrice turned to look at him directly, something vulnerable in her gaze. "I wish she could have a normal family, a mother and father who love her and each other." The implication of her words made Isaac's heart beat faster. They had built a partnership, a friendship, perhaps even the beginnings of love, but neither had spoken of such feelings aloud. "Beatrice," he began carefully, "I want you to know that my feelings for you have grown beyond our arrangement. I care for you, for both of you, more than I ever expected to." Color rose in her cheeks. "As have mine for you," she admitted softly. "I never thought I could trust a man again after Ian, but you've shown me what a true partnership can be." Isaac moved to sit beside her on the sofa, cautiously taking her hand in his. "I don't want to pressure you. I meant what I said about moving at your pace." "I know," Beatrice said, her fingers tightening around his, "and that's why I trust you, why I've come to." She paused, gathering courage. "Why I've come to love you." The words, spoken so simply, filled Isaac with a joy he hadn't experienced in years, perhaps ever. "I love you too," he said, the declaration feeling natural and right. "And Emma, you've become my family in truth, not just in name." Beatrice's eyes shone with emotion. Slowly, she leaned toward him, and Isaac met her halfway in a kiss that was tentative at first, then deepening with shared feeling. Unlike their brief wedding kiss, this one spoke of genuine emotion, of choices freely made. When they finally parted, Beatrice rested her forehead against his. There are still things from my past that make me nervous about certain aspects of marriage." "We have time," Isaac assured her. "All the time you need. This knowing you love me as I love you is enough for now." That night, when they retired to bed, the careful space they had maintained between them narrowed. Beatrice moved closer, allowing Isaac to hold her as they drifted to sleep, her head resting on his shoulder, his arm protectively around her. It was a small step, but a significant one, the first of many such steps they would take together in the months to come. Christmas brought a special joy to the Vaughn household. Isaac rode to town through knee-deep snow to purchase gifts: a silver rattle for Emma, a leather-bound journal for Beatrice, and materials to make new curtains for the house. Beatrice, in turn, surprised him with a hand-knitted scarf she had been working on in secret, and a framed drawing of the three of them she had sketched and asked the traveling photographer who had passed through Silver Creek in November to frame for her. "This is the finest gift I've ever received," Isaac said, his voice thick with emotion as he studied the portrait. Our family," Beatrice echoed, smiling as Emma cooed in her lap, fascinated by the colorful paper wrappings. As winter gave way to spring, the transformation in their relationship continued. Beatrice bloomed like the wildflowers that began to dot the meadows around the ranch, her confidence growing daily. She took on more responsibilities, proving herself an equal partner in all aspects of their life together. And with her increasing confidence came greater openness between them, both emotionally and physically. The first time they truly came together as husband and wife, nearly 6 months after their wedding, it was Beatrice who initiated the deeper intimacy. Her past experiences had made her wary, but Isaac's consistent gentleness and respect had gradually healed those wounds. Their lovemaking was tender, unhurried, a mutual discovery that left them both transformed. "I never knew it could be like that," Beatrice whispered afterward, nestled in his arms, like a conversation without words. Isaac pressed a kiss to her forehead. "That's because it was born of love, not obligation or possession." As Emma's first birthday approached in July, the ranch prospered under their joint care. Isaac's cattle herd had increased, and Beatrice's vegetable garden yielded bountifully. They had gradually resumed normal interactions with Silver Creek, the story of their marriage accepted without much question by the townsfolk. If anyone had suspicions about the timeline of their relationship, they kept such thoughts to themselves. They had heard nothing from Charles Russell or his men since the previous fall. Whether he had given up the search or merely bided his time, they couldn't know, but the immediate threat had receded enough that they no longer jumped at every unexpected sound or approaching rider. The morning of Emma's birthday dawned clear and bright. Isaac rose early to complete his chores, wanting to spend most of the day celebrating with his family. When he returned to the house, he found Beatrice baking a small cake, Emma playing contentedly with wooden blocks he had carved for her. "Papa," Emma called when she saw him, holding up her arms to be lifted. The word, relatively new in her vocabulary, never failed to fill Isaac with pride and wonder. Though Emma was not his by blood, in every way that mattered, she was his daughter. She had his eyes, Beatrice often teased not in color but in their observant, thoughtful expression. "Happy birthday, little one," he said, swinging her into his arms. "One whole year of making our lives brighter." Beatrice watched them with a soft smile. "She's been asking for you all morning." "Pa, over and over." "Well, I'm here now," Isaac said, dropping a kiss on Emma's dark curls before setting her down to play again. He moved to Beatrice, slipping an arm around her waist. "And how are you this morning, Mrs. Vaughn?" "Wonderful," she said, turning to kiss him properly. "Though I have something to tell you." Something in her tone made Isaac study her face more closely. "What is it?" Beatrice took his hand and placed it gently on her stomach. "Emma will have a brother or sister around this time next year." Joy surged through Isaac, momentarily robbing him of speech. When he found his voice again, it was rough with emotion. "A baby, our baby," Beatrice nodded, her eyes bright with happy tears. "Our baby, I'm certain of it now." Isaac pulled her into a careful embrace, mindful of the precious new life she carried. "I love you," he murmured against her hair. "Both of you, all of you." As they celebrated Emma's birthday with the simple cake and gifts they had prepared, Isaac found himself reflecting on the extraordinary journey that had brought them to this moment. Just over a year ago, he had been a solitary rancher, content in his isolation. Then a baby's cry in his barn had awakened him to possibilities he hadn't known to yearn for: love, family, a shared future. That evening, after Emma had been put to bed, exhausted from her day of celebration, Isaac and Beatrice sat on the porch swing he had built that spring, watching the stars appear one by one in the darkening sky. "Did you ever imagine your life would turn out this way?" Beatrice asked, her head resting comfortably on his shoulder. "Never," Isaac admitted. "I thought I'd grow old alone out here with just my memories for company. And now," he smiled, drawing her closer, "now I can't imagine any life but this one. With you and Emma and soon, another little one to love." Beatrice sighed contentedly. "Nor can I. Sometimes I think about that desperate night when I found your barn door unlatched, how close I came to continuing on, fearing you might turn us away." "I believe some things are meant to be," Isaac said quietly. "That barn door was unlatched for a reason." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, the only sounds the creaking of the swing and the distant lowing of cattle being settled for the night. Finally, Beatrice spoke again, her voice thoughtful. "Emma's cry that morning, do you remember, when you first found us?" "Of course," Isaac said. "It changed everything. You told me once that you used to wake to the rooster's crow, but now you had different morning music." She smiled up at him. "You were right, her cry became your new morning song." "The sweetest music I've ever heard," Isaac agreed, kissing her softly in the gathering darkness. "And I look forward to every dawn it greets." As they eventually rose to enter their home, their true home, built not of mere logs and stone but of love and trust and shared dreams, Isaac knew with absolute certainty that the life they had created together was richer than any he could have imagined for himself. What had begun as an act of kindness toward a desperate mother and child had blossomed into a love story neither of them had dared to hope for. And as the years passed, that love only deepened, strengthened by the challenges they faced together and the joys they shared. Emma grew into a spirited, intelligent young woman with her mother's beauty and determination. She was joined by 2 brothers and a sister, the expanding family, filling the once quiet ranch house with laughter, arguments, and the beautiful chaos of connected lives. Charles Russell made one final attempt to reclaim his daughter and grandchild when Emma was 5, appearing at the ranch with legal papers and threats. But faced with the united front of Isaac and Beatrice, the undeniable evidence of their happy family, and most significantly Emma's clear terror at the sight of him, even he had to admit defeat. He departed, never to return, leaving Beatrice truly free at last. In time, the ranch prospered, growing into one of the most successful operations in the county. Isaac and Beatrice worked side by side through good years and bad, their partnership only strengthening with each season. And every morning, without fail, Isaac thanked whatever fate or providence had guided Beatrice to his barn that October dawn, allowing her baby's cry to become the song that awakened him to love and the family he had never known he needed.